Hello and welcome back to the Formula Super Series for round number 3, where we're finally landing in our one and only round on home soil for these Super Formula machines in the Mobility Resort Motegi, labeled Twing Ring on the scan we have here on iRacing. We're taking on an interesting configuration of this track here tonight in its east layout on the road course. Sophie, what are we in for tonight?
Jacob, this is a stacked field and a track with not a lot of real estate. This is the shortened east version, as you mentioned. And to complicate things further, that is right, you are seeing puddles there. Weather is going to be a factor. As it stands right now, there is a rain front moving in towards Mobility Resort Motegi. So these drivers in a high horsepower machine with no driver aids are going to have to contend with some tricky conditions, Jacob.
Yeah, we're watching a number of drivers late here in the practice session experiment with dry tires. We're riding outboard with Michael Costello for Eclipse competition as he navigates the course on those dry tires. It seems to be once you could get them moving and up to temperature just that little bit, they're starting to prevail around this track. We'll see if drivers opt to take that risk heading into qualifying and the heat race here tonight, as it's going to be quite the challenge to get the cars around, particularly through those puddles that we're seeing even very close to the underside of that underpass bridge that goes underneath the oval found here on the premises here at Motegi.
Yeah, and one of the things that you're seeing here on this track, you're seeing a lot of those puddles, a lot of those dark patches. If the rain stays away, which it could possibly, what you'll see is there's going to be a much more clear, dry line. But even Costello earlier, before he went to air, Jacob, just caught one of those puddles, and it just sent him spinning like a top. And it sends Drew Schutz there off into the grass, which is going to be all wet. Several cars off. It's a tight confines here in the practice session, Jacob.
Yeah, there's basically enough track around a good number of the corners around here to really only fit 2 cars reasonably. Even if you could maybe squeeze a third one all the way out on the other edges of it. Just not a whole lot of room, especially when you've got kind of the wet area as the track, as we watch Costello make a move on Allen down the front stretch here. Going to be quite the night of open wheel action here from Motegi, as we've also got other various things going on tonight as another car goes off right ahead of us here as practice comes to a close. And we'll head into qualifying here, and let's quickly recap the point situation headed into this race tonight. We're looking at Chilcutt on top, and he's come out and let everybody know he's on hiatus for the rest of the season due to some real-world driving commitments that'll put Logan Edwards kind of in the catbird seat as it stands ahead of Titus Sherlock. You've got Jeremy Fairburn, Drew Such, Costello, Jasper DeFabis, Groff, Falm, Daly, Yellen, DeMage, Claiborne, Wolf, the likes of Nick Goyette and Kevin Tomba, who we saw have some decent runs last time out at Sonoma. I have to see who's able to get maybe some forward momentum built up as we're getting to the kind of the third way mark of the season. If we quickly look at those team championship standings, you've got Eclipse Competition and Eclipse Competition Purple 1 and 2, with the likes of Go Squadra and the Nexus Esports teams behind them, Mayamo Legacy, and then Mayamo Esports Pretty Derby Formula Racing, based off the team they've got listed here in Sim Racer Hub, Such Racing, Mayamo Esports Dynasty, and Eclipse Academy alongside Team Watson Racing rounding out the top 10. You can see all 14 teams listed throughout there, and we're getting through qualifying here. And as we kind of look out with Michael Costello, we'll actually ride on board with him around this Motegi East course in qualifying, see what he's going to put down here. He's on those dry tires. He's thinking he can make something nice and quick out of those through the qualifying session here, Sophie.
Yeah, there was a gap between when practice ended at the race, the quali began, but there is still rain in the future forecast that could still become a factor. Another thing to consider here, Nate Seifert, who's currently circulating, is the only driver that has a pit start penalty that is in the field today. Now, Seifert will have to start from the pits during the sprint, but will be able to start from the grid during the actual feature itself. So Nate probably trying to qualify to get a good pit stall for that sprint race to try and minimize the bleeding.
Yeah, that main event also has the benefit of a top 10 invert, so if he can work his way maybe to the bottom portion of the top 10 in the sprint, he'll be able to kind of get the flip and get put further up the field for that feature, and a good pit stall will only help that situation even further for the main event here tonight. So we watch Costello drop his first lap of the evening for qualifying. It'll be a 3:28 rather for lap number 1. He's got 2 more to drop down here before qualifying for him will conclude. We'll see if he's able to improve on that. Oh, he'll go around here.
Yeah, another driver I want to highlight who's currently starting out on their qualifying runs here is Peter Dimov. Those who are kind of old heads like me will probably recognize that name from the famous 4 wide finish at the Freedom 100 in 2013. That is that Peter Dimov, who is joining the series for this round here at MOTEGI.
Yeah, sporting a very colorful iRacing default paint is Mr. Dempsey. He's out here rocking the number 24 SF23 tonight, working his way under the bridge, underneath the oval here, perhaps where kind of he's more noteworthy known with that Freedom 100 finish from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but he's taking on the twisties here at MOTEGI. We'll see what he's able to do, and I believe his series debut.
Yeah, so he's struggling there with some of the puddles there on the course here, as looks like he is going to reset, not able to set a time. Now, for those who are newer to the sim, if you get an off-track or even a 0x contact penalty, any kind of incident point during your qualifying laps, iRacing throws those out. Even if you didn't gain a competitive advantage, iRacing will still throw those out. So you have to have a completely clean lap to have where your lap counts.
Yeah, we were actually riding with Costello, and that's what happened on his first lap. I was wondering why he didn't shoot up to the top of the board following that conclusion. He must have had one of those occur over the course of it. Not quite sure maybe where. Must have missed that as we were inside the car. And it's sometimes hard to tell because it could just be 1 or 2 tires off in the grass, and that's not the easiest thing to spot at full speed if you're not maybe getting that warning. As we've got Titus Sherlock going around here as he's currently provisionally on the pole.
Yeah, the back half of this track has a lot of tight corners where you're relying on the mechanical grip more than the downforce, right? Because again, these are highly downforce dependent machines. The more downforce you have, the more grip you're going to have. The faster you go, the more downforce you have, right? In these tighter corners, you can't go that fast. You're not getting the grip from the air traveling over the car. You're relying on those Yokohama tires. And, well, if you have slick tires going through a slow corner where there's a bunch of water, you're easily going to lose the car.
Now we're watching Kyle Allen navigate the course now as Carter Kundinger will shoot up to the top of the pylon as it stands with a 108.310. Pipping out Sherlock. We saw Seifker shoot up the order. He's got that pit penalty, but qualifying good will give him a solid pit stall for that main event here tonight. We'll be interested to see if people can maybe get a grip on these cars, get at least a lap down here in qualifying, as I think that's going to go a long way to improving your race here tonight, even if the track is going to be as treacherous as it seemingly has been so far here tonight.
Yeah, there's been several big names who haven't quite set a lap. One that I'm currently watching on an outlap is Logan Edwards. Now, you get 3 laps in the Formula Super Series to set a time, unlike officials where you only get 2, and depending on the track, sometimes only realistically 1. So Logan still has opportunities here to maybe sneak in and set a time, but it looks like that penultimate corner is just, it's been really difficult for a lot of people. You see a lot of gravel on the exit of that corner.
Yeah, a lot of gravel, kind of even in the final corner, too, off on the exit there. You can see a good bit of it being kicked up, scattered around on the outside there as Edwards works his way down the front stretch here on the East Course. Start-finish line is way over here rather than MOTEGI's typical start-finish line, which would see drivers shoot off to the left there where those cones we just drove by are and work their way down a different set of straights to get back to where we find Logan Edwards now working his way towards the Bridgestone Bridge that'll be around this bend to the right here. So you travel underneath the back stretch of the oval here at Motegi and work your way back towards the, well, I guess it's the east end of the course.
Yeah, the east end of the course has some of those has some sweeping corners. It has some tight corners. Logan Edwards kind of working into that troublesome corner there with all the water. Oh, and he sloops it. That's probably going to be the end of his qualifying, unfortunately. As, again, 2x incident point, 1x incident point. That's going to put an end to your ability to set a quick time.
Yeah, tough break for Edwards. He'll be down the order a good bit as a result of not being able to get that time down. Got a couple minutes left here in qualifying, and drivers will likely just be looking to put some laps down, maybe try to figure out how they can navigate the course, especially that back half where so many drivers have been caught out trying to make the dry tires work here.
Yeah, and Peter Dempsey currently sitting in second on another flyer, possibly the final of his flyers, his last, a 1:08.5, currently only being eclipsed by Carter Kluninger with a 1:08.3. So if Dempsey can make it through this corner cleanly, which he does, runs into those puddles, possibly Dempsey could show that he's got the speed on the twisty bits as well as the oval bits.
Yeah, he'll work his way down the front stretch for the final time. He improves, but the time did not. Oh, no, it goes through. 1:08.513. That'll be it for Dempsey. A little over 2/10 off of Carter Kuninger, who currently sits on the pole. Likely going to remain the case unless we've got drivers yet to set a time. Maybe the likes of Tristan Moss, Dan Marrera, yet to take a time. See if maybe they get out there and nail one. No, we're running out of time. I don't think anybody else is going to be able to topple that just yet. Watching a couple cars still navigate the course, just trying to get to grips out here in a very, very tricky set of conditions here for Motegi.
Yeah, and I see people practicing their standing starts. This is a standing start league, Jacob. Granted, that's normal for the Formula Supercars, or the Super Formula cars. Not so normal for the Indy cars, which this is the sister series for, that being the Formula Indy series.
Yeah, qualifying will come to a close here, and we'll get the grid order for the sprint event tonight. Have to see just how everybody's going to navigate that standing start given the treacherous conditions. 14 laps the distance for this sprint event, and let's run you through the starting grid here from Motegi. So it will be Carter Kuninger on the pole. His last name appears to have some issues given the pro designation on his last name being spaced away from his last name, so he shows up as parentheses P. But that's Mr. Kuninger. Peter Dempsey will start alongside him. The second row will be composed of Titus Sherlock and Nate Siefker. Jeremy Fairburn, Michael Costello, Byron Daly, Gavin Sanders will be rounding out the top 8. Kevin Toma and Zach Falm, league administrator for the Formula Super Series, will be in 11th. Move a bit further down the order. Dakota DeMage, Pedro Mojica, Barrett Wolf, Cody Claiborne, Dan Miglin, Griffin Yellen, Gabriel Sellian, Nick Goyette, and Logan Edwards will round out the top 20. Edwards the first not to set a time. Then you've got the likes of Drew Such, Tanner DeFavis, likes of Tristan Moss and Matthew McComish. Dan Marrera not taking time as well. They'll start from the back of this grid. And we're getting ready to head underway here from Motegi.
Yeah, ignore the fact that I was on that grid. I totally didn't accidentally register as a driver when I registered off my friend Logan Edwards.
Yes. We have a couple extra names on the pylon tonight. We've got seemingly the bulk of the grid lined up. I believe Nate Siefker and is going to be the first, at least, of the cars we don't see yet lined up out there on the course. Wait, now just a couple more drivers to get to the starting grid, and we'll be able to drop that. Oh, I think we're ready to go. Siefker's lined up.
Green, green, green.
And away we go.
Siefker had a pit start penalty. It's been 3 wide on the start. Peter Dempsey looks to have not gotten a good getaway, as there is a little bit of contact between the Eclipse machine of Costello and Peter Dempsey. Titus Sherlock takes the lead. Carter Kluginger had the worst start out of all of them, has dropped down to 4th in that 0-2 machine. On my screen, that is a old school Williams Juan Pablo Montoya scheme, as Costello looks on the inside of Dempsey.
Yeah, we saw Byron.
Dempsey runs wide, goes off, and he spins. Dempsey around. Dempsey rear wing gone.
Yeah, we saw the likes of Byron Daly and Tanner DeFabis go off in the opening set of corners here. We'll have to likely run back up.
Yellow flag.
Full course yellow.
Oh, iRacing threw a yellow. I don't think I've ever seen iRacing throw one.
Yeah, it's certainly a sight to behold. For those unaware, iRacing doesn't typically, at least in its official series, have full course yellows on road courses, but we do have the option in these league sessions to have them, and iRacing has opted to throw one. Let's take a look back.
I wonder if it's over Dempsey.
Yeah, let's take a look back at the start of this race and see what happened to the likes of Byron Daly. So we'll work our way forward just a little bit here as I reround just a little too far. So we're heading off through turns 1 and 2 with Byron Daly here as the focal point of where our cameras have caught back up to. And he just kind of, I think he just, oh, he might have got some help. I'm not quite sure who that is behind him, but that'll have him, and I believe that's going to be DeFabis. No, not. One of the other Eclipse cars gets into the back of Byron, and then there's just cars scattered all about the course. DeFabis gets his front wing knocked off. Cars scattering into the grass. You've got another, an old 90s Williams-inspired liveries off in the grass over there. Certainly a tough opening couple of corners. And then we look at the likes of Peter Dempsey. He's still traveling at this stage, but goes off the course here at the end of the straight there towards the Bridgestone Bridge, heading underneath the backstretch of the oval. He'll go around, back it up into the fence, and he'll try to rejoin. And, oh, he stops on the racing course to try to maybe back up, and maybe that's what triggers the yellow ultimately. 4 cars with meatball flags: Dempsey, DeFabis, Daly, and DeMage. Very chaotic start here for the sprint event as we're under caution here on lap number 2.
Yeah, DeMage really was unfortunate in that, because it looks like he went off the track to try and avoid to dodge Barrett Wolf, who was dodging a spinning Daly, and then DeMage gets onto that grass, which is still wet, and then ultimately gets kicked up by a large ridge in that grass and just flips his car over and does major damage to that Super Formula machine.
So this will be a rolling restart as we follow the BMW pace car, a relatively new addition here to the iRacing service. Not one we've seen a whole lot of, but we're seeing it here now. Very fancy light work that they've got on that machine at the front of the field. Not one we necessarily want to see, but certainly a cool thing to see iRacing adding more licensed vehicles that maybe we don't get to drive ourselves, but we get to see and follow around behind under caution here, as we've got Titus Sherlock and Michael Costello, the 2 Eclipse cars, at the front of the field. Kudinger, the pole sitter, down to 3rd. Gavin Sanders, Jeremy Fairburn, Kevin Tomba, Zach Falm, Drew Such, Barrett Wolf, and Logan Edwards. Edwards has made himself all the way up to 10th through the chaos. We'll see if he's able to claw his way further up the grid once we get back going here. Lights remain on the pace car. We'll go around at least one more time.
Yeah, and a lot of the drivers are complaining in voice chat about how slow the pace car is. I would assume this is because a lot of these people obviously are road racers. They are not used to being trapped behind a pace car because usually it's local yellows only. But lights are now out on that BMW pace car. We're going green next time by. and everyone's kind of trying to get any heat into their tires that they can, because again, they only got about half a lap of green before that yellow came out. Obviously, there was a big kind of chaos in the opening part of the lap, and then obviously the issues for Peter Dempsey. So hopefully we get some green flag racing and have a little less chaos this time, a little more of the action we like to see. We got fast drivers up at the front. Titus Sherlock, who dominated the opening round. Michael Costello, the comeback kid, who had a very strong drive through the field after some troubles early in the feature at Sonoma. Carter Clunier making their debut, I believe. Gavin Sanders, who's always very quick, very competitive in the Formula Indy series. Jeremy Fairburn, one of the other Eclipse competition cars, also very quick. And of course, Kevin Tomba in the 6th position. All drivers that are very quick, Jacob. All drivers to look at, keep an eye out for.
Yeah, we can maybe help some drivers looking to get quicker here with series sponsor VRS. They help sim racers get faster by providing cutting-edge software and high-performance hardware built with insights from both real-life racers and top sim racing professionals, alongside the Sim Racing Warehouse. And if you're looking to save some money with great prices and no sales tax, the Sim Racing Warehouse is your U.S.-based shop for all your needs. For a limited time, you can save 5% off with capital SRW House in the coupon code section on checkout. To save some more, you can check them out at simracingwh.com for the Sim Racing Warehouse. We appreciate them sponsoring the Formula Super Series in season number 4 of the league here. We're working towards the back half of the course here. Pace car indeed rather slow. Maybe one that they need to get Fred some additional training to figure out how to pick up the ponies here around the Motegi East course. Of course, Barney the flagman, Fred the pace car driver. It's a Flintstones reference. iRacing has some fun with these. Still working our way around the course, getting ready to head back under green for what will hopefully be the rest of tonight's sprint.
I just realized something, Jacob. The timer for this race is still ticking down. This is a timed race, Jacob, so a whole mess of laps are, just like with lap racing, it's going to be under caution. Obviously, you can't pass during those laps, but because they're traveling so slow, they're going to have even fewer laps than they would in normal conditions, Jacob. So this is really hurting the chances of someone like a Nate Siefker who might want to try and move up through the field.
Yeah, pace
car is off.
Yeah, pace car is off. I forgot that these are timed events, and that really only becomes a factor when we end up with a yellow like this. Drivers are going to end up going off the final corner, heading down full tilt down the front stretch here from Motegi, and we'll see as 7 minutes remain on the clock who's able to make the most of the rest of the sprint here.
Yes, Titus Sherlock streaking out in front, but has his teammate Michael Costello right behind. Carter Kluninger looking to make up for that disastrous start that he had with the standing start. Gavin Sanders, though, quickly dropping back about 1.5 seconds off the leader. See some water being kicked up by those dry tires. The track not completely dry. Costello runs a little bit wide.
Yeah, we saw Drew Such go wide at the opening corner off the restart. He'll fall down the order down to 13th now. We're out here with Jeremy Fairburn and Zach Falm battling for the 6th spot here. Kind of in the middle of the swarm, if you will. You see Barrett Wolf and Matthew McCormish off in the background there doing battle in those two red and various colored machines. I believe we've got Wolf here in the red and white scheme here. Nate Siefker's making some solid moves here as well.
Logan Edwards is joining that battle with Zach Falm and Jeremy Fairburn. The eye-coaching Luke Mansky esports machine. Tomba's around. Tomba is around on the exit of the first corner. That's going to move up Logan Edwards, who had already made up 2 spots on that restart and is now up in 7th in excellent recovery after not setting a time in, as Edwards is looking on Zach Falm.
Yeah, well, let's catch up with Matthew McCormish because he took some heavy damage trying to make through that incident. It looks like he'll make contact with, I believe this is going to be Nate Siefker in the 2 machine. He'll get shot into the inside wall. going underneath the bridge there. And that'll likely be night done, at least in the sprint here for Matthew. Tough break for a couple drivers after this restart with just a handful of minutes remaining on the clock, trying to do everything they can to make their way up the field.
Yeah, that was just unfortunate. Poor timing of kind of just everything there, because obviously Seifert had fully committed to the corner to try and make the move done, not expecting Tomba to be sitting on the outside. Tomba has fallen all the way down to 18th as gets into contact with Cody Claiborne, sends Claiborne off the track. Chaotic scenes here at Motegi.
Yeah, we run that back. You've got Tomba looking to the inside there of Claiborne, and yeah, they're just going to come together.
Kluginger's off! Kluginger has fallen well down the order. He's 14th now. Got into some contact with Drew Such. Such was way down the order. What had happened to Kluginger?
Yeah, we'll see, because Kluginger comes down. We've caught him heading into turn number 1, and I believe he's going to go around into the opening corner here. He'll get down on the brakes, try to slow this car up, turn in. Oh, he grabbed too much of the curb on the inside of the track and likely grabbed some water that kind of lingers on the inside there. He goes around. That drops him down the order to get him into that spot in the first place. And then as he kind of recovers, he'll get back going, and then maybe potentially further down the track. Yeah, you see Seifert avoiding Kluginger now, and I guess not long after this, we're going to see that additional contact be made as Kluginger is just trying to get his feet back underneath of him following that spin. And you've got a car diving to the inside now, and he goes off again, and that's going to send him across the nose and off again.
Yeah, I just want to reset the order. Let's reset the order here, Jacob, after some of that chaos. We've got 3 minutes left in this race. It's Titus Sherlock out in front, almost a second and a half ahead of his teammate Michael Costello in second. Gavin Sanders in third. Zach Fahm fourth. Logan Edwards, after not setting a time, has climbed up to fifth. Nate Seifert, after a pit start, has climbed up to sixth. Jeremy Fairburn, the other Eclipse machine, in seventh. Barrett Wolf, 8th. Drew Schutz, 9th. Kyle Allen, currently the top amateur class, in 10th in that 999 machine.
Yeah, and he's doing battle with Nick Goyette in 11th. They're going down the front stretch. You're going to see Goyette maybe look anywhere he can put that machine. He goes to the outside here.
And Logan Edwards has gotten around Zach Fahm. Move Logan Edwards up to 4th now, as he's not as fast as Gavin Sanders, as Costello goes purple, says the fastest lap of this sprint so far, and that is a 1:06.4 for Michael Costello.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, Edwards included, have broken into that 106 second bracket. Last time by, Edwards with a 106.787, as he's looking to maybe gain a little bit more ground further up the road, maybe at least try to get away from the likes of Zach Fahm and Nate Seifert, who's quickly entered that picture after starting from the pit lane. So bravo to him for making it through the chaos and working his way back into a nice, solid finishing position here in the sprint, which will give him a decent starting spot in the main event here from Motegi tonight. Let's see if we can find ourselves that battle once more between Fahm and Seifert. Seifert closed in, kind of hit a puddle on the exit, and he struggled, and that's going to let Fahm get away just barely.
Yeah, and currently it is Nick Goyette in the 10th position. That's going to be the reverse grid pole. Nick Goyette had a previous reverse grid pole, but he has to hold on to it as Kyle Allen, the top running amateur, currently looking at getting around Nick Goyette.
Yeah, we're seeing Jeremy Fairburn make the pass on Barrett Wolf for the 7th spot. It's the closest battle on track as it stands. Goyette has to hold off. Oh!
Yes, I believe.
Barrett Wolf goes around. He hits the puddle off the exit heading towards the second or the final straight before the front stretch. He'll recover, but he'll fall down to at least 12th spot behind Pedro Mojica. Siefker's made the move on Falm for the 5th
Yes, and I
spot.
believe that we're going to be... This is either going to be the white flag lap or the checkered flag lap for Titus Sherlock. Has pulled out a 2-second advantage over Michael Costello. So Titus Sherlock will start 10th on the feature race grid, but will be securing the most amount of points possible for him from this sprint race.
Yeah, it looks like the white flag is in the air already. We'll see Sherlock navigate the final corner. I believe this will conclude the sprint event. We'll see if he stays at race speed or opts to slow up here. There's the checkered flag in the air from Barney. Sherlock, your winner. He goes purple right at the end with a 106-107.
Michael Costello comes from 2nd. Gavin Sanders 3rd.
Logan Edwards holds on for 4th. You've got Siefker in 5th. Falm 6th. Fairburn in 7th. Such, Goyette, Allen, the top 10. That'll put amateur driver Kyle Allen on the pole for the main event here from Motegi. See if he could capitalize and hold on to that track position. For that one, you've got Pedro Mojica, Barrett Wolf, Kevin Tomba, Dan Miglin, Dan Morera, Cody Claiborne, Griffin Yellen, Carter Kudinger, the first car down the pit lane, seemingly multiple laps down. Gabriel Lassellian, Matthew McCormish, Peter Dempsey, DeFabis, Daly, DeMage, all out with damage in the sprint. And we'll get into the warm-up here, give drivers a chance to reset as they work their way towards the main event tonight.
Yes, and obviously between this and the main event, there is a warm-up. The day and weather cycle has been changed here. Track is dry, although it is very humid right now. High level of humidity, high level of wind, Jacob. But while we wait for cars to kind of take to the grid to get the bearings on the new track conditions, why don't you remind everyone of our sponsors for this fantastic series?
Yeah, the Formula Super Series for season number 4 is presented by VRS, the virtual racing school. They help sim racers get faster by providing cutting-edge software and high-performance hardware built with insights from both real-life racers and top sim racing professionals. I can personally attest to just about every product in their lineup, as I've used all of it, including the bulk of my personal rig being composed of VRS hardware. The Sim Racing Warehouse is likewise a title sponsor here of the Formula Super Series in season number 4. If you're looking to save money with great prices and no sales tax, the Sim Racing Warehouse is your US-based shop for all your needs. Plus, for a limited time, you can save 5% off with the coupon code capital SRW lowercase house, all one word, in the coupon code section on checkout, and save even more. Check them out at simracingwh.com, or I believe there's a link in the stream description for them. Do have the weather conditions here pulled up for the race here, or rather this warm-up session that's ongoing right now. Temperature in the air, 68 degrees Fahrenheit with a track temp of around 94, 95% humidity with a 14-mile-an-hour southeast wind. It's going to be a very interesting set of circumstances as we go from a puddle-filled track to maybe not quite as puddle-filled. You can still see small patches of wet scattered around close to those curbs down the straightaways, but by and large this is a dry course now, which will likely see lap times even faster than we saw at the conclusion of the sprint race.
For sure, Jacob. Another thing that I do want to highlight before we get into the feature race is the fact that there are 2 classes in this race. Even though everyone is driving the Super Formula, there is a pro and amateur class. So if you're under 2,000 I rating, you're considered an amateur in this series, and you're in a different class. So Kyle Allen, starting on the reverse grid pole, have a great chance to make sure that he wins the amateur class. There also is a tire change rule in this series. You're required to make 1 pit stop, 4 tires during the race, but you can only make it after the 20-minute mark. Sorry, after 20 laps or 10 minutes, I believe, is whichever comes first. Then you are allowed to change Jake your mandatory pit stop. Now there is an exception, Jake, and I bring that up because there is some chance of rain still in the forecast. No dots on my radar yet, but if the session starts dry and is declared wet, you can pit whenever to get on those wet tires, and that might come into play here, Jake.
Yeah, and if we maybe see a repeat of the chaos from earlier on, you know, maybe drivers opt to get ahead of that, maybe do something weird with the tire strategy, if that's even an option at that point in time, as Kyle Allen will go around through the puddle off the exit of turn 2 there. It's going to be quite a tricky event even still with the trace amounts of rain we still have out on the course.
Yeah, someone else goes off behind him doing a very similar thing. The thing I was going to say, Jacob, the key thing with the tire strategy, even if it stays dry, is we've seen where people have waited to pit because they weren't in traffic. And the thing is, if you pit early, there's a chance you come out behind people that are slower than you, and then you'll have to fight them for position and possibly be held up by them. So a lot of people have been kind of playing it safe, waiting longer, trying to overcut because the tire wear isn't necessarily too bad, right? So if the tire wear isn't bad, you might as well stay out and make sure that you are not coming out in traffic. So I'll be curious to see with such a small track how much that's a factor, because I don't think you're going to have a luxury of avoiding it.
Yeah, I think the thing we've also kind of picked up on throughout the running of this season is a lot of drivers have been able to run a set of tires very, very long because they don't wear that much and seem to pick up more and more speed over the course of the running. So drivers are almost trying to avoid putting new tires on because that slows them down slightly as well alongside that traffic situation just organically with the potential pace difference between a heated up set of these Yokohama tires compared to fresh ones.
Yes, as we're now transitioning into the race now. So currently for this race, it'll be Kyle Allen, the amateur, on the pole for the reverse grid with Nick Goyette behind him in P2, Drew Schutz P3, Jeremy Fairburn in 4th, Zach Fahm, the league admin, 5th, Nate Seifert 6th, Logan Edwards 7th, Gavin Sanders 8th, Michael Costello 9th, 10th is Titus Sherlock. In 11th, it'll be Pedro Mojica, Barrett Wolf in 12th, Kevin Tomba, after his troubles, in 13th, will start 13th, Dan Miglin, another amateur, in 14th. Have a long way to go to catch up to Zach Allen with his starting spot. Dan Morera is in 15th, Cody Claiborne 16th, Griffin Yellen 17th, Carter Klunginger, after the disastrous sprint race, will be starting 18th, Matthew McCormick 19th, Gabriel Asseline 20th, and Tanner DeFabius 21st, Peter Dempsey 22nd, Byron Daly 23rd, and rounding out will be Dakota DeMage and Tristan Moss.
Yeah, we've got those cars
Green.
off and away here from Motegi.
Yes, they're off and away. Some people having a better start than others as they're up to 4 wide as we funnel down into turn number 1. Seifert going for a big lunge on Goyette, somehow makes it work.
Zach Fahm gets kind of the pointy end of the argy-bargy of the 2 Eclipse cars. He'll fall down the order as well.
Bruce Schutz has jumped Kyle Allen on the start. Logan Edwards up to 3rd, looking at passing Kyle Allen. Logan Edwards looking underneath the former engineering student, now up into 2nd place. Looking to hunt down Drew Schutz to the lead, hoping to build up a gap, because he knows Titus Sherlock is coming. Sherlock now up to 5th.
And more trouble for Kevin Tomba as he's fallen down the order, potentially with damage. Can't quite see anything on his SF23 just yet. Griffin Yellen's got a meatball flag. He's encountered trouble early. Very chaotic start here once again for Motegi as a couple cars are going to peel off to the pit lane. Yellen and Tomba amongst them. Back to the front, Such and Edwards.
Yeah, great start from Logan Edwards there to make up a lot of positions early. We've kind of seen that the reverse grid pole really has had a hard time maintaining that position. As Logan Edwards looks all over for a gap to pass around Drew Schutz. It's obvious right now that Logan Edwards has the number of the 28 machine right now. That orange car is not as quick, and Logan hoping to pounce on that.
Yeah, Titus Sherlock and Gavin Sanders have also made their way by Kyle Allen. Costello's going to look to the inside now on the 999 machine, move him up to 5th. Allen will fall to 6th. Rapidly falling down the order early in the going here as we've got 35 laps on tap to be covered in the 37 minutes that remain. See if that comes into a factor, potentially pending a full course yellow. Should we get another very dicey situation like we saw with Peter Dempsey in the sprint? DeFabis has fallen down the order.
Well, speaking of Dempsey, he is up 10 positions on where he started already. He is up to 12th.
Yeah, Dempsey up to 12th. DeFabis has come down the pit lane. We'll have to see if maybe he had some damage or contact that resulted in him needing to do that. Looks like, yeah, he's missing a front wing.
Seifert has disconnected. And Seifert has disconnected from the server. What on earth happened to Nate Seifert?
Yeah, quite the chaotic start to this race as Drew Such is starting to pull away from Logan Edwards.
So I figured out why DeFavis had his damage. So Nate Seifert had Titus Sherlock rather was looking on the inside of Seifert. Sorry, hard to tell those Eclipse cars apart. And Seifert got on the curb, lost it, smacked into the Eclipse machine, and that catapulted him into the wall. Day done for Nate Seifert. Gavin Sanders is also out.
Yeah, Sanders is out. Strong runners out early in the going in the main event here tonight. That could have some decent championship implications as we're kind of watching the Hornet's Nest here as Peter Dempsey runs in 10th behind the likes of Pedro Mojica, Barrett Wolf, and Matthew McComish. All over each other. Oh, car around. That'll be Barrett Wolf, I believe. Off in the sand trap. Goes off the front nose. Let's see how that contact was made. So that's going to be off the front of the 44 of McComish. Dempsey's going to take evasive action, just barely missing that 13 machine of Barrett Wolf, and that's going to be a tough break for Barrett as he was working his way into the top 10 with style, trying to put up a good run tonight.
Yeah, and look, Edwards still trying to find a way around Drew Schutz. Last lap, he was 2/10 faster. Titus Sherlock faster than both of them as Sherlock has hit the 6s. So has Costello. As Costello goes purple. So
yeah, Peter Dempsey's worked his way up to 8th. You've got Kyle Allen under fire from Jeremy Fairburn for the 5th spot. That'll be kind of the next Eclipse
Logan
car in line.
Edwards has a pass for the lead. Logan Edwards has gotten alongside Drew Schutz. They've been side by side for the last 2 corners now. Jacob, sorry to interrupt. As Logan Edwards looking to make a move as he's now got the inside in here. Excellent quality of racing, giving each other plenty of room between the 28 and 09 machines. Still side by side, but Logan Edwards has taken the lead in the Luke Mansky Esports machine. We obviously know how good he can be in the wet, as we saw on Monday night during the Indy Open race.
Yeah, Edwards takes the lead, but not far behind is that Eclipse competition pair of Costello and Sherlock. We've got 4 cars almost under a blanket here for the lead from MOTEGI. Costello will go purple.
Costello goes purple again. Kyle Allen currently hanging tough in 5th. Doing an excellent job. I don't want to commentators to curse him, but as other more established drivers have faltered, Allen has been just consistent and has held on to a top 5 position, currently withstanding pressure from Jeremy Fairburn, but he's turning in comparable lap times to the pro drivers, so that's an excellent showing from him.
Yeah, Costello's made the pass on Such for 2nd. That'll move Such down to 3rd. He'll be under fire from Titus Sherlock momentarily, as Sherlock's looking to look further up the order here, and this has allowed Logan Edwards to stretch a little bit of a lead here now, just within a second, as he's stretched out to about 0.8.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that, again, with the amateur class, currently Kyle Allen in 5th, Dan Meglin, the only other amateur in the field, is in 15th. So quite a big gap, largely because of the reverse grid pole.
Yeah, Costello will go purple again, that time by 106.109. Only slightly slower than we saw of the fastest lap in the sprint. We'll see if that continues to fall over the course of the running. As we know, these Yokohamas seem to only get better with more laps on them, and we'll have plenty more of them left here, as we're not even a quarter distance through the advertised 36 laps here tonight as we're working lap 7.
Yes, we still long race to go. There's over 32 minutes left. And again, they can't change tires until race control says that is allowed. And again, like I mentioned before, traffic seems to be a factor in when people decide to pit. And right now, 8 seconds up the road from our leader, Logan Edwards, is the wounded car of Kevin Tomba. Currently just coming out of the pits after getting some damage repaired. Currently several laps down. There is some interesting blue flag rules in this league, Jacob. Like with the sporting code, you don't have to pull over when being lapped unless you've already been lapped once. So Tomba will have to yield per the rules, whereas the likes of Cody Claiborne and Barrett Wolf will not.
Yeah, Costello went purple once again, 106.001. We might see a 105 yet here tonight, as he's closing in on Logan Edwards for the point here within a half a second now. As that gap closes, as Edwards runs a little bit wider than he probably expected to through that right-hander here.
Yeah, it seemed like Costello's carrying way more entry speed through that corner, but Edwards' lap times are not that far off Costello, so it's not over yet. It's one thing to catch someone, another thing to pass, as we saw, as it took a while for Edwards to get around Drew Schutz, despite the small pace advantage he had over Schutz.
Yeah, Costello's got to wait to get back on his overtake system button. He's got about another 30 seconds. He's got to wait before he can hit that button again. Edwards can deploy whenever. He hasn't opted to do it down the front stretch here, as Costello will go purple again, 105.913. He's picking up the pace slowly but surely here, hunting down Logan Edwards for the point here. Dempsey will now go purple, 105.889. So there's a couple cars in here that are really up in the pace here as we get working through these laps here in the main event.
For sure, and Costello maybe looking to pop, maybe try and head crack Logan there. Logan's lap times have been within a 1/10 of Costello's. It's just Costello just has that little bit extra, so Edwards can't shake him.
Yeah, the draft is certainly helping him on the front stretch in particular. He'll have the overtake button back available to him whenever he so chooses to use it. I would not be surprised to see him use that down the front straightaway this next time around, and we'll see if he opts to do that here from the onboard camera here with Michael Costello as he continues to hunt Logan Edwards for the lead.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he is on that overtake system. Although I don't see the lights flashing. I see that solid green as he gains a lot under braking there. Edwards gets a little bit wide on those curbs, and those curbs are what caught out Nate Siefker earlier. Perhaps with all the running on it that's kicked up all the water, as Logan hits the puddle there and has a dreadful run as he goes defensive on the inside line, trying to make it difficult for Costello to pass. Costello gets the better drive off the corner.
That gap now just inside 0.2 of a second as Costello's going to get very close to the back of Edwards through that left-hander there. They'll work through the switchback here. Edwards will pull ahead kind of as Costello has to reset a little bit. He used the button just a while ago. He's going to have to wait in about another minute before Costello can get back on it. And Edwards has put himself in a fairly pretty position here, kind of just calm and steady at the front of the field.
For sure, and he has a lot more of that push to pass to use than Costello. Costello, I believe, only has 102 seconds available to him, whereas Logan Edwards has way more. And as we just heard from race control, pits are now open. So if these drivers so choose, they can duck off into pit lane.
Yeah, 183 for Edwards on that overtake system. Costello 102. Sherlock on 160. Such 194. Dempsey 194. Allen on 200 still. So a number of drivers have yet to even touch that system. So I'm wondering if people are maybe trying to bank that for the closing stages when they feel like that's going to be the most advantageous for it. So we see a car down the pit lane there.
That Costello. Yeah, someone taking advantage of that already. That looks to be Cody Claiborne, as well as a few others, those being Barrett Wolf, who rejoined after his troubles. Now, it looks like Edwards has gained a little bit on Costello, perhaps, as Costello has not touched his push pass. Maybe Costello was using that to kind of elevate his pace a little bit, because again, when you use that overtake button, you get additional horsepower, and that's something you can do. It's a pretty viable strategy to use it in other competitions like the IndyCar as a way of trying to ensure that, say, an undercut or an overcut succeeds. We now see Peter Dempsey go purple with another 105.8. So Peter Dempsey, the Irishman, is coming.
Yeah, Costello was about a second slower than Edwards that last time by, so I'm sensing there was at least maybe some sort of error or mistake or some miscalculation in that previous time by as we're getting to the conclusion of lap 12 here. See if anybody opts to come down the pit lane early here. I don't imagine we're going to see too many takers up further on the grid, as Costello is going to be looking to hunt down Logan Edwards at the front of the field here. Let's see if we can try to maybe chase down a battle that's brewing a bit deeper in the field. I believe that's going to be Jeremy Fairburn trying to chase down Kyle Allen for 6th. Allen, despite losing a number of spots early in the going, has held steady kind of past the opening couple laps here. He remains inside the top 6 in 6th. See if he's able to hold off Fairburn for a couple laps longer, as Fairburn's reaching close to half a second behind.
Yeah, and Costello went purple before Peter Dempsey snatched it away again, so he is definitely picking up the pace in his efforts to catch Logan Edwards. Perhaps he's driving a little bit angry after that mistake.
And if we look further back, Pedro Mojica's under fire from Zach Falm for the 9th spot. That's starting to get back closer. Falm fell down the order early, kind of with all the various overtakes being made in the opening couple of corners here from the main event here at Motegi. See if he's able to crack it further into the top 10 as he currently sits in that 10th spot.
Yeah, and the gap hasn't gone down much between Logan Edwards and Costello. Logan Edwards was just a little bit faster that previous lap than Costello, despite Costello's monster lap he put in the lap previous. Speaking of a monster lap, Peter Dempsey just shaved 2 tenths off of his previous best lap. He goes purple with a 105.4.
Yeah, we figured the 105s were available. Now we might be starting to wonder if we're going to see a 104 before the end of this main event here tonight, as Dempsey continues to drop that purple lap lower and lower seemingly every time by. He's definitely showing us what he's made of here in his debut in the Formula Super Series. We'll see if he's able to continue working forward, as he'll be looking to try to chase down Drew Such just 2 seconds up the road.
Yeah, and if I'm Logan Edwards, I'm going to start thinking about pit strategy here a little bit. If I was him, I'd be staying out longer, because again, if you pit early, there's a good chance you're going to come out behind drivers that are slower than you. Might not necessarily yield, and might end up holding you up, and then you're easily overcut by one of these Eclipse competition machines. Or if you're Costello and you come in early, you could find that the gap has grown between you and Logan Edwards.
Well, Costello's gained about half a second or so within the last couple laps as Edwards struggles through that right-hander again. That's been kind of his trouble corner here, as Costello closes in just a little bit more as they head off through kind of the switchback here in the middle portion of the lap. You know, is this going to be kind of the build-up that Costello's looking for to maybe get in Edwards' head of trying to make that move?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the thing. I know that as a driver, you're gonna want to try and get in Logan's head. You want to try and force a mistake out of him. The other thing to keep in mind if you're Michael Costello is to be patient. It's so easy to see it what you think is an opportunity, get a little greedy, and find yourself without a front wing or possibly looking at the racetrack from the other direction because you got a little overly optimistic. So he's got to kind of build the momentum and kind of wait for the right moment to make the move into one of these braking zones. Try to make a high percentage move because you got to be thinking championship at this point with how few rounds there are, even with the one drop. I believe Costello missed a round already, so Michael Costello probably is going to be hopefully thinking championship here. Because he's definitely got a good points haul sitting in second. I know he wants to win, but...
Yeah, just kind of a quick midfield update. Kyle Allen's dropped down 2 spots to Jeremy Fairburn and Byron Daly, and now runs in the 8th spot. That'll put Mojica and Falm, the next cars behind him, some 3.5 seconds back of him. Have to see if he continues to kind of hold his ground. He held that 6th spot for a good portion of the race following the opening couple of laps, so it's certainly not outside the question that he could stay in that 8th spot the rest of the going here, but leading the AM class, not a bad place to be for Kyle Allen amongst the sea of pro drivers.
Ooh, Logan Edwards runs wide and Costello has a big run. That's the kind of mistake Costello was hoping for. Logan Edwards runs wide, has the momentum down the straightaway, clears Edwards before the corner even, but Logan Edwards has a switchback run as he's going to have the inside line coming through these corners.
Yeah, you saw Costello maybe lock up a little bit there.
To pass. Yeah, Costello forces the issue there on the inside, gets a better corner there, and passes Edwards. Edwards still on the button.
Yeah, they're both essentially on the same cooldown. Edwards has opted to pit.
Edwards pits.
The first of the leaders.
Yeah, Edwards ran. Go ahead, Jacob.
No, Sophie, you got it.
I was going to say, Logan Edwards ran a little wide there. Because, again, it was obvious Costello had the pace for the most part. Was just going to have to wait for a mistake or wait for an opportunity, and he took it when Logan Edwards ran wide through this section that you see Costello going through now. Those high-speed corners, it looked like Logan just got a little bit wide, maybe hit a little bit too much of the puddle that's still there on the apex of that corner. And it sent him out wide, killed his momentum, and Costello pounced.
Yeah, Edwards has exited the pit lane now in 7th. Some 18 seconds adrift of Costello, who he was battling for the lead. We'll see how that kind of changes or evolves once the pit cycle gets in swing proper, as there's only a couple cars that have come down the pit lane so far, the likes of Carty Kudinger, Dan Miglin down the pit lane as well. Kevin Tomba has come down, likely to repair his car at a point in time, so we'll see once more of the leaders start to come down.
There is a Dan Morera has had an M2 at pit entrance, currently trying to back the car up after spinning. Looks like just locked the rears. The spun is kind of gotten the car situated, but kind of, I hate to use the reference, but kind of Austin Powersing it as he's trying to get into the pit lane safely. Thankfully, does not bring out a yellow, but a scary moment for the 404 machine.
Yeah, fortunately, there's not walls like there is at the infamous pit lane on the entry of the normal configuration of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That's most notorious, or like the likes of Spa with walls on the pit exit, or even the pit entry rather, where you could very much get your car perma-stuck if you wedge it in there sideways. As Costello's going to make the move on the 4 machine of Miglin. That'll put Miglin a lap down. There, the other AM class runner here will go 1 down to the overall race leader in Costello. And we're working a little past the halfway mark here. We're going to maybe start to see cars roll. Are we going to see maybe a couple of these lead cars roll the dice and see if they can take an undercut to the front?
For sure, and I wonder if that's what Logan Edwards was doing, because Costello obviously now has to deal with lap traffic. A battle I'm currently watching is over what's currently third place. Drew Schutz has his mirrors full over that colorful painter's template machine of Peter Dempsey. Dempsey's obviously has been setting the fastest laps of the race all night and is trying to climb back up through the field after that mistake. Gets on the inside of Such. Ooh, little contact made. Oh, and it looks like it broke the front wheel off of Drew Such. That's going to be night done for Such. Just his tripoding that machine. He's off into the grass, hits the wall. Oh, that is unfortunate for Drew Schutz. I don't really know that there's much I can say there, but tough night.
Yeah, we'll watch that contact back. That's a very bizarre incident where the right front of that SF23 just kind of explodes as Dempsey looks to the inside in that final corner. We'll see Dempsey on the button, looking alongside on the inside. He does do quite a considerable lunge into this final corner, but is ultimately alongside before they get towards the turn-in point there. And you'll see kind of contact on the exit of the corner here with the left rear making contact with that right front, and it causes the front wing to bounce back into that right front tire and then basically cut it off the spindle, if you will. And that'll end Drew Such's night in a very bizarre turn of events.
Yeah, and update on the amateur battle. Dan Miglin obviously has already gone the lap down and had a moment in front of Tyler Sherlock, ran wide at the opening corner, but no harm, no foul other than the incident point.
And it looks like we might wind up with a battle for the 4th spot before too long here, as Costello will go purple, 105.425. Byron Daly is in the sights of Jeremy Fairburn for the 4th spot. Fairburn, another one of those Eclipse competition cars, looking to move his way up the order. And Logan Edwards is in this picture, battling just back a second adrift of Fairburn. So we'll have to see if maybe he rolls into this picture before too long as well and opts to try to work his way forward before he gets significantly held up, as he's still probably in a battle for the win here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a roll of the dice to kind of come in that early because exactly this. Like, he's going to be very soon on the gearbox with Jeremy Fairburn and Byron Daly. And that's a chance that he's going to end up getting held up by those individuals as they're fighting for position. They're fighting their own battles, their own race, and it's kind of the risk you do when you pit early. That said, conversely, Michael Costello is going to have the same problem when it comes to lap traffic. So it's possible that this was the move to kind of get out early, especially since we know that it takes a couple of laps for these Yokohama tires to really come into their own. So maybe Logan pitting early means that he gets to spend more time towards the end of the race on the tires at their best versus Costello. If Costello takes the pit stop late, he'll have to get those tires up to temp and hope that he doesn't come under fire from Logan Edwards.
Yeah, the big thing to look out for is kind of the gap between those two machines. And Edwards sits about 22 some odd seconds adrift of Costello as it stands. We kind of saw the pit lane time. Oh, Daly around. Byron Daly will go around. I think he hit that puddle we see.
Logan Edwards sends a big send on Jeremy Fairburn and gets the move made. Wastes no time. Fairburn trying to mount a comeback here. But ultimately, Edwards has the line in the next corner and streaks on up ahead. So Fairburn really can't even do much to help out Costello and try and hold Logan Edwards up, even though Edwards is very much the quicker car. So Edwards takes advantage of that chaos. Meanwhile, Costello has Dakota DeMage within a second of him. DeMage is going to go a lap down. The thing is, again, per the rulebook, DeMage doesn't have to pull over. So now Costello is the one who's having to deal with traffic.
Yeah, Edwards capitalized very heavily, as I'm sure Fairburn had to check up a little bit to avoid the spinning car of Byron Daly that last time by. That gives Edwards a huge opportunity to send a big move, make the move for 4th. Peter Dempsey goes again purple that last time by with a 105.171 as he continues to creep closer and closer to that 104 second bracket. It won't be too much more that he can really drop that before getting there. We'll see if that storyline plays out to fruition, but Costello going to end up under the back of Dimov here. He'll make that move into turn number 1 down the front straightaway here. That'll put Dimov down a lap. Next car in the sights of Costello will be Pedro Mojica, about another 10 or 15 so odd seconds up the road. He may still catch him before he comes down the pit lane. I believe that's Kevin Tomba actually just ahead now.
Yeah, Kevin Tomba is ahead by about 1.2 seconds. Then it's up another 9 seconds up the road to Pedro Mojica. One of the things with these cars, though, Jacob, a lot of drivers are complaining about was the dirty air that comes off of these cars, and that's probably one of the reasons why Logan Edwards is so quick to pounce on Jeremy Fairburn, because it's so difficult to pass. We saw that it took a mistake from Logan Edwards for the likes of Michael Costello to pass him, despite the fact that Costello, like Peter Dempsey, has been just changing back those purple laps, just switching back between those two drivers.
Yeah, they've been the class of the field on the pace front all night long. Dempsey having to come a good way further up the grid following his troubles in the sprint, but he's certainly made the most of this main event so far tonight. He'll be looking to hopefully capitalize on a nice finish here as we get to the closing third of the race, working lap 26 of 37 with just under 12 minutes to go here from Motegi.
Yeah, Michael Costello has definitely been clicking off fast laps. His last lap was 1:05.2, which isn't even his fastest, and that is quicker than what Logan Edwards is running. So it's possible that that Logan Edwards might just not be there at the end because Costello has just really been clicking off those fast lap after fast lap.
Yeah, we'll see Tomba come down the pit lane here, let Costello on through. That'll give Costello some clear track for a good while here, and he'll work on to lap 27 now from Motegi. Quite an eventful event, all things considered. We saw a lot of chaos early on in the going. We've seen drivers even later in these closing stages have issues with the likes of the puddles here in the opening sector of the lap, including just very, very tough breaks for the likes of Drew Such, especially that contact in the closing portion of laps just a couple laps ago, ultimately ending his night, and he'll fall well down the order as a result. So it's been kind of the curveball we thought it would be, with the weather and the track configuration being a bit different here from Motegi than we're used to seeing in the few instances we get to see of this track. Certainly something special.
Yeah, it is definitely still. Yeah, it's certainly something special, and again, we're going to see that it's still a tricky track here, because again, as they come through those those S sections in the middle of the track, that's in the infield of the oval, there's a lot of puddles still on the apexes of those corners, and if you hit that in those high commitment corners, it's going to really kind of send the car out wide or possibly spin the car. So you've got to be very careful with where you're putting your Super Formula machine.
Yeah, we just caught Carter Kudinger going off at the opening corner. That'll drop him a couple spots behind the likes of Gabriel Eselian and Zach
Costello has pit. Costello has pit, and he managed to pull out 6 seconds on Logan Edwards, but he has got cold tires. That gap is going to shrink a little bit, and he has come out behind Dakota Dimov and Dan Miglin, as well as Dan Morera, so he has come out in traffic. Logan Edwards has the likes of Kevin Tomba, though, between him and Michael Costello.
The big thing that we'll be looking for is just how much do these cold tires in the traffic impact Costello. Obviously, Edwards has a bit clearer of a track with Tomba a good way up the road ahead of him, and the warmer tires. It's really just going to depend on how fast can Costello get his Yokohamas underneath of him and navigate this traffic, as he'll make it by one of those lap machines ahead of him, working off into the final corner of the lap. Edwards now within 5 seconds of the race lead as Peter Dempsey peels off to the pit lane.
Yeah, Peter Dempsey goes down the pit lane. Logan Edwards now cycles up to the second. Titus Sherlock will be in fourth, as he just came out just behind Peter Dempsey. So Peter Dempsey going to be under fire. That's going to be a battle to watch here, as he's got those cold tires, whereas Titus Sherlock pitted earlier and will have some heat into those tires, as he is all over the Irish driver, the winner of the Freedom 100 back in 2013. Sherlock looking on the outside of Dempsey. Dempsey holding the defensive line.
Yeah, Dempsey holds on to it for now. Sherlock going to look to the outside, which will become the inside. Brave move from Sherlock. He'll dive to the inside. Make the move on Dempsey.
And Dempsey had to check up there because of how aggressively he sent it. He sends it a little bit on the inside here. But ultimately, Sherlock holds on. Dempsey's pitting again.
He's got a black flag. Might have hit the incident limit, potentially.
Perhaps. It looks like, yeah, it looks like he has a drive-through. So there goes that battle, as unfortunately, Logan Edwards has not chipped anything out of the gap of Michael Costello, as Dan Miglin lets him go.
Yeah, Edwards is about 4 seconds adrift, depending on where you catch on the track. Even if he chips a good chunk out of this lead, I just don't know if he's going to have enough time to do anything with Costello once he gets there.
Yeah, there's only just over 6 minutes left in this, yeah, there's just over 6 minutes left in this feature race. I don't know that you're right. I think you're right. I don't think how Logan Edwards can get there. He's going to have to settle for the silver medal. Obviously finished well last round at Sonoma, so good points haul for Logan. But ultimately disappointment, just did not have the pace, whereas Costello was setting quick times and keeping the car on the track. And that is the key here to succeeding in iRacing.
I think that goes for racing in general, but Edwards, maybe not having the flashiest run on the planet. Obviously, he led a good portion of the middle stage of this race, but ultimately the early pit stop, along with just maybe not having quite the outright speed that Costello had, is going to put him down a spot. But this is kind of the runs that build champions, right? Is you have guys that maybe sneak in, throw up some podium finishes over the course of the season, maybe don't throw on a dominant performance multiple times throughout the season, but they quietly chip away at it, kind of point their way to the title. You could note the likes of Matt Kenseth back in 2003. He won the third race of the season and basically just pointed his way to the last of the Winston Cup Series championships. And that certainly works, as Sherlock will go purple with a 1:05.071. We're almost there. Is somebody going to break into that 4-second mark?
For sure, Jacob. That is a good question for this last couple of minutes of this race. If one of these drivers can break into that minute 4, I will go back to the point thing here, Jacob. Logan Edwards kind of doing a recovery drive here, because remember, he didn't qualify. He didn't set a time. Managed to crawl back into the top, well into the top 10 to get points in the sprint, and now is going to get a podium in the feature. That's a great points haul, given the way this race started for him.
We'll certainly knock on wood for that one. We don't want a commentator's curse him, especially in the last couple minutes of this race. Let's fall back to the likes of Tanner DeFabis, as he's going to be slightly under fire from Carter Kudinger in the O2 machine, as DeFabis is navigating the opening sector of this track with a little over 4 minutes to go. This is the closest battle on the course as it stands. Kudinger just a little under a second behind. We'll see if he's maybe able to roll back in here and catch DeFabis before this one rolls out. We've got a car hitting the pit lane just off ahead here. That'll be Zach Falm, I believe.
Yeah, that would be Zachary Falm. Yeah, the league admin taking his pit stop late. Now, Falm did make an announcement during the drivers' meeting. I suppose he listened to the broadcast, heard me suggest the infamous Michael Schumacher 2000 Silverstone strat of change your tires if your pit stops before the start-finish line, and said, no, you have to do a full out lap plus race lap on your new set of tires during the drivers' meeting. So he is taking that now with about 4 minutes left in this race.
Yeah, just a little over 3 minutes left on the clock. DeFabis has gapped away from Kudinger now. Gaps around 1.75 now. Byron Daly is going to have Mojica of the Pedro variety chasing him down. That gap's about a second between these two. And shout out to Byron Daly. He's had a bit of a struggle. Oh, there it is. The 104.714 from Dempsey. But Byron fell down the order.
Angry.
Byron fell down the order early on and made a bit of a recovery here.
I don't believe that was a clean lap, though, Jacob. It's not showing as purple on my race labs here. So possibly he had an incident point during that lap, but he is definitely driving angry and driving with speed right now after the disappointment of losing what likely would have been a podium due to hitting the incident limit and getting a drive-through.
Yeah, certainly set him on the back foot. Likely would have been at least a podium, if not a win for Dempsey, if he had been able to keep it on the black stuff. Stayed out of trouble a little bit more here from Motegi. Working the last couple of laps here. We'll fire back up to Costello at the front, give him his due for being the leader of the race as it stands. He's got lap traffic still up ahead of him here. Coming through the opening sector of the course. He'll head under that Bridgestone bridge underneath the back straight of the oval here from Motegi, working his way around. I think we might get to that 1 minute marker just in time for him to cross the line, so we might get 2 to go here this time.
Yeah, another thing that I am noticing here with Peter Dempsey, he is almost out of push to pass. He has used all of that. Whereas some of these drivers, like Titus Sherlock, still have a good little bit of it left. Logan Edwards has about 80 seconds currently on the button now.
Yeah, white flag is in the air for Costello with under a minute remaining in the session, so we didn't quite get 2 to go. We're going to get 1 this time. Costello with a 6-second gap over Logan Edwards in the second spot. He did exactly what he needed to do, ran the overcut, stayed out, was able to put down some solid laps. He's going to work through the final corner here. Or no, we're way too early for the final corner. I lost where I was on the track. We're working through the middle section of the lap now. He's going to make it by that throwback Williams livery.
Yeah, he was begging Gabe for that. I don't... Someone's probably telling him he's got a 6-second gap. He's home free right now.
Maybe he was on a bit of a screamer of a lap. His last time by, he said a 104.946. Hopefully that one stands, and we'll at least see one proper lap in the 104 bracket. But he'll come across the line here, take the checkered flag, and win here from the Motegi East course. Logan Edwards will finish second. Costello's teammate Titus Sherlock will round out the podium. Peter Dempsey, in anger, will finish fourth ahead of Jeremy Fairburn and the other Eclipse competition car. Another Eclipse car behind him. Tanner DeFabis is hunting him down here. We've still got a battle here coming into the final corner on the final lap.
Yeah, it looks like ultimately DeFavis and Fairburn, then DeFavis, then Kluginger coming across the line, followed by Mojica in 9th. And Kyle Allen is going to come home in 10th, and he will be your amateur class winner over Dan Miglin.
Byron Daly will round out that top 10. Zach Falm puts up a solid performance as the last car on the lead lap in 11th. Gabriel Iselian will finish 12th. Miglin, that other AM car, will finish 13th. So that battle ended up being a bit closer than it might have looked early on in this race when Allen was on the pole for the main event tonight. You've got Dakota DeMage, Dan Morera, Kevin Tomba, Drew Such, Cody Claiborne, Barrett Wolf, Matthew McComish, Nick Goyette, Gavin Sanders, Nate Siefker, Griffin Yellen, and Tristan Moss, rounding out all the cars on the grid tonight. Certainly an eventful one here from Motegi as Costello's doing burnouts on the front stretch here at Motegi, and we'll have some happy drivers ready to give us their thoughts and feelings here from the one trip to Japan for the premier open wheel cars of the nation for this Formula Super Series season.
Yes, and it was an exciting action-packed race. There was a lot of strategy involved. Obviously, there was the incredible pace put on display by Michael Costello, as well as Peter Dempsey, ultimately coming up short for him with that penalty knocking him off the podium. But a solid run nonetheless for his debut here in the Formula Super Series, Jacob.
Certainly not a bad run, even in spite of the issues for Dempsey. Get drivers up on into the interview room here shortly once we can track down their automobiles on the course, give them their screen time, all their sponsors and the like. Let's see who
we currently have a couple. Currently have Kyle Allen, the amateur winner, waiting for an interview, Jacob, as well as a few of the other podium finishers. Another great, again, I just want a great shout out to the amazing battles that we saw out there. Unfortunately, one of those battles being the battle between Logan Edwards and Drew Schutz. Schutz unfortunately had that contact that broke his suspension and kind of ruined his race, Jacob. But good run from Schutz up until that point.
Yeah, that weird, very bizarre contact between the left rear tire of Dempsey and Such will drop Such down the order. Let's get Kyle Allen on up here. We've got his car up on the screen. Kyle Allen, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Yes.
Well, another solid run for you here in the main event from Motegi. You started up at the very, very front. We're holding your ground pretty good following the first couple of laps where kind of the pointy end of the field got their way on through, but you were kind of hanging around the sixth spot the bulk of the race here, and then were able to hold on to a top 10 finish come the conclusion and hold on to the amateur class win. Stayed on the lead lap. You logged every lap on offer in the main event tonight. Kind of walk us through your race.
Yeah, just tried to keep it clean. I knew I wasn't going to be fast. For some reason, I just don't have the grip like everybody else has going through the corners. Seems like they have a little bit more grip or more skill mid corner or entry, braking, pretty much all of it. But just tried to stay clean. Had a little mistake going into T1 after I came out of the pits after the second lap out of the pits. But got away with that cleanly, luckily, and I was able to bring it home.
Yeah, certainly seemed like a race of reducing your mistakes was going to get you pretty far here tonight, and that certainly worked out for you. Sophie, what do you got for Kyle tonight?
Kyle, obviously, you started on the reverse grid pole. Could you kind of walk us through how nervous you felt having the likes of Titus Sherlock, Logan Edwards, Peter Dempsey, all of those incredibly fast drivers kind of gunning for you just by nature of you finishing 10th in the sprint?
Yeah, it's in general. I mean, I race with these guys week in, week out. They're all really good race car drivers, and I think they play everything close but very fair. So just making sure I give them way or give them room whenever they make their dive, and not try to cut over or cut back on them because I know it's just I don't have that speed. But it's in general it was about I think the second or third time I've started up front after finishing 10th, and it's an experience starting up there. I like I like that we're the series does a reverse grid. It kind of throws things into a loop, and I think it allows for the broadcast wise, I think entertaining show.
Well, it was certainly an entertaining show. There was lots of action to cover, especially in the early goings of the main event here tonight. But you hold on to the win of the AM class. Friends, family, sponsors, Kyle. Anybody you want to shout out? Floor is yours.
Of course, my family. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this. Luckily, they let me take time and do a little racing. And Benke Media, as well as Vision Motorsports, Vision One Motorsports. Without them, I wouldn't be driving this. And appreciate the broadcast. You guys do a great job.
Well, thanks for joining us here, Kyle. You go celebrate your win here tonight. Solid run for you here. We'll catch you in the next round. I believe we're heading off to Watkins Glen, if I'm not mistaken, Sophie.
Yes, it is the Watkins Glen Cup layout, so another shortened, abridged version of a legendary track.
That'll certainly be a good load of fun. We'll hopefully catch you there, Kyle.
Sounds good. Thanks.
That'll do it for Kyle Allen. We'll bring up Titus Sherlock, who finishes third here tonight. Get his machine up on the screen. Titus Sherlock, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Gotcha.
Well, it was a relatively quiet night for you after starting tail end in the sprint. Obviously, you picked up that sprint win and had to start a bit deeper in the field and work your way forward. Very chaotic start in that sprint event with drivers trying to navigate their way up back through the order as quickly as they could. Kind of walk us through the maybe a bit of a slower crawl you had towards the front of the grid here tonight.
Yeah, well, the sprint was good. Qualified up front, got to the lead before turn one, and pretty easy win. I think I could have swept again, but unfortunately, a driver lost control of their car on lap one in the feature and hit me and gave me a suspension and wing damage. And then in the pit stop, I had like 5 seconds of required, so it just put me out of the race. But definitely had the pace to do it, but just unfortunate that that happened again. So it is what it is. But good to get some more points on the board after missing the last race. So positive day as well for Eclipse winning with Michael.
Yeah, it was certainly quite the run for you in the sprint. Actually, starting up in the front certainly goes a long way in terms of being able to lock in some sizable points. Obviously, you were able to go on a bit of a recovery drive in spite of the issues in the feature. Kind of walk us through what it's like having to do that in the same night, if you will, kind of having worlds turned upside down and running two completely different races in terms of how you've had to tackle things tonight.
Yeah, it's just frustrating when someone makes a mistake and it ruins your pace. I mean, luckily I was able to keep going, and that's more important. And the damage was bad, but it wasn't, it was probably about half a second a lap or so. So it was livable until the pit stop. So just annoying to be driving around with understeer and seeing people drive away from you. But yeah, I mean, overall good points. So not too bad. If that's a bad race, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, certainly hard to hang your head too low on a podium finish. Sophie, what do you got for Titus tonight?
Well, Titus, obviously you talked about the damage. Can you kind of walk us through? You had a battle with Peter Dempsey after he came out of the pits on cold tires. Can you kind of walk us through kind of how you managed to work your way around him despite his best efforts to hold you at bay?
Yeah, obviously when I boxed, I was, I think, like 6 or 7. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but 6 or 7 seconds ahead of him. And then because of the required, I came out right behind him, and I decided to put the push to pass on and just kind of hold it out and not shut it off, and just got around him. But he did actually cross the pit exit line, so we had to get a drive through anyways. So it didn't really matter too much, but it was a fun battle while it lasted. And yeah, good to get some good wheel-to-wheel racing in when you can.
Yeah, certainly looked like a good bit of fun there once the chaos kind of subsided a little bit for everybody. And we'll take a little kid funny number. It's hard to avoid all of them in the current year. But you know the drill, Titus. Fred's family sponsors. Floor is yours.
Yeah, of course. Eclipse, as always, we've had a really good season so far. We haven't lost a race yet, so that's really positive. Just everyone that's been driving with us, it makes these events a lot of fun. All of our partners as well, Mosaic, ProGuard, Destination Athlete, everyone that supports our drivers in real life. Thank you.
we'll certainly thank them as well. Thank you for joining us up here in the interview room, Titus. We'll hopefully catch you at the next round at Watkins Glen, and its cup layout will be certainly another wild race from a shortened world-acclaimed circuit.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That'll do it for Titus Sherlock. Third place tonight. We'll bring up Logan Edwards here now. Rewind the cameras just a little bit further so we get it. Make it where I don't have to wind the tape back. Logan Edwards, Jake Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
I got you.
Well, we were hoping we'd get you up here in the interview room again on the channel. Obviously, you picked up the win at Sebring in the IndyCar Open Series this week in a very wet and wild race there. Maybe not the result you were quite hoping early, or kind of in the midway point of this main event here from Motegi, but kind of walk us through what you kind of experienced out there leading this field for a good portion of this race tonight.
The track, the mostly dry track conditions were pretty precarious. There was the inside of what I believe is turn 4 or 5 that was soaked in water the whole race. It caught a lot of people out, nearly caught me out a couple times, but I was able to save it. But I struggled to find braking zones, especially with the tailwind, into a lot of like very slow corners. But I eventually conquered that, but it was a little too late. And Costello ended up having a lot more pace when I didn't, and he took the lead.
Yeah, it's certainly a track that is kind of deceptive in the way it looks. Is that, you know, it has a decent bit of elevation change, but a lot of the corners look relatively flat in their angle of attack, particularly in the later sections of the course. But there is a good bit of kind of elevation and camber to those corners. Kind of walk us through what it's like having to navigate those select instances of the track falling away from you and then having to deal with the odd puddle or two in spots that you just don't really want to have to manage in the very tricky conditions we saw tonight.
It's tough, but it reduced your confidence, but I also found that I could use it against other people because they were making the same mistakes, sometimes even worse, in a lot of those key braking zones and throttle zones. So the track take and the track give, or giveth taketh, or whatever the term is, it was ultimately a very fun race, and I like the challenge this track gives.
Yeah, certainly good to find the advantages where you can get them, even if it's kind of using the elements and the facility in which you find yourself to your advantage. Sophie, what do you got for Logan tonight?
Well, Logan, you obviously got a very good start during the feature and then found yourself in second place behind Drew Schutz. One of the kind of things we heard at Sonoma was about the dirty air, how difficult it was to set up moves. Was that also true here at Motegi? Were you struggling in the dirty air and when you were trying to get around Drew?
Yeah, I think I could have made the move sooner, but ultimately I just didn't have enough confidence yet, especially since I'd kind of felt a little skittish in the heat race and it had gotten a little more dry since then. I still didn't have that faith in my car, but the dirty air was definitely very real. These cars do understeer and they are affected by dirty air a lot, so it was a challenge to navigate that. Other than that, this track has a generous helping of long straights and slow corners where aero also kind of doesn't matter, but there are definitely some key sections where you can't build runs that you'd really like to have on the straight because of dirty air.
Yeah, certainly a very difficult track to kind of time those moves, get around cars, especially given the nature of the track kind of not working to the ultimate strengths of these cars, which is kind of the high speed elements, but it's all generated on the wings, which makes it very difficult to follow through the fast flowing kind of middle sector in particular. But you made it work here for a nice finish here on the podium for your team, Logan. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Shout out to Dugmansky Racing Esports, our sponsors, iPredictor and Lilac City IT. Special shout out to iCoaching.co. We have our Indy Next and Indy car setups live for Sebring. So if anybody's looking for a setup for those series, check out iCoaching.co.
There you go.
And thanks to P1, as always,
Oh,
because
well,
that's really why I'm here.
well, there we go. Well, thank you for joining us here, Logan. We'll hopefully catch you for the 4th round of the Formula Super Series next week as we take on Watkins Glen Cup, another short, iconic track being ready to be taken on by these SF23s.
That'll be something.
And that'll do it for...
I'll see you then.
Yeah, we'll see you there, Logan. Thanks for joining us. And that'll do it for Logan Edwards. And we've got tonight's winner, Michael Costello, left to go. We'll bring him on up here. Michael Costello, Jacob Collins, Sophie Connell, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. Well, you did the right moves at the right time, kind of stayed out a bit longer than kind of your biggest competition and Logan Edwards did, and pit a bit later. You were setting really fast laps heading into that pit stop, which ultimately put you out decently well ahead of Edwards behind you, ultimately winding up with a 6-second gap come the checkered flag. Kind of walk us through your race here tonight as you worked your way from deep on the reverse grid back to the front here.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the same mentality as Sonoma, except this time I didn't make the same mistakes as there. Um, Ultimately, it was a pretty fun race, I think. Really good track to drive, but kind of the same trend, just not really the greatest for passing zones. But yeah, it was a pretty clean race tonight. I think I had a little bit of contact with Gavin, but obviously that wasn't on purpose. But yeah, I think other than that, it was a pretty clean race. Just kept my nose clean, made the moves when I needed to, and overall just had good pace, kept putting consistent clean laps down, and I think that was kind of the trend for tonight on who could be in front and set the most clean laps.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like track position and most importantly, the lack of cars around you was really going to be the thing that kind of sealed the deal. And we thought maybe kind of the back and forth of lap traffic versus maybe having to battle cars you'd wind up behind naturally through the pit cycle was going to be one that ultimately played out pretty close. And it was there in the ballpark more or less throughout the closing portions of this race, particularly with the late pit stops a number of drivers had to make. Sophie, what do you got for Michael tonight?
Well, Michael, obviously, Jacob here was saying that you made the right moves at the right time. Did you feel at all nervous with how at points Logan was able to kind of open up the gap a little bit to you? It seemed that you generally had the pace on him. Were you at all worried about him possibly undercutting you?
No, not really. I know that sounds kind of arrogant, but no, not really. I kind of dropped back a little bit. I think lap 10 maybe, whenever Logan kind of pulled the gap out a little bit. I tried just keeping my tires a bit cool because I knew that was kind of destroying them behind him in the dirty air. So just decided to drop back and cool them off a little bit and made another run forward. Ultimately, I think that was the right decision. Um, because I saw him struggling a little bit more, especially before he pit. But I was just main goal protecting the fronts right behind him. And yeah, especially how Jacob was saying with the track position. I thought I was gonna have a nice battle then at the end with my team owner Peter, but I think he got a penalty or something, which took him out of contention. But yeah, that was just tonight being in front and just protecting your tires as much as you can.
Yeah, it certainly looked like you ultimately had to take very much care of your car, your equipment, and go the distance to make it out on top here tonight, which you've done in fashion. Friends, family, sponsors, Michael, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Yeah, obviously I'd like to thank everyone at Eclipse Competition. Kind of same thing as last week, getting me up to speed. Had other real life commitments all throughout the weekend, but ultimately we got there. I want to thank ProGuard Warranty, EDA Eyewear, my new charity, Hope for AL, and obviously I'd like to thank Turn 3 Motorsport for all the real life hard work that they've been putting into me. And the USF Pro 2000 season should be starting up in the next 2 weeks at Arlington, it's in Dallas, Texas. So hopefully that'll be a good weekend, and that's all I got for tonight.
Well, thanks for joining us here, Michael. We'll hopefully catch you next week from the Watkins Glen Cup layout for round 4 of the Formula Super Series. Go celebrate with your team tonight.
For sure. Thank you so much.
That'll do it for Michael Costello. Obviously, he's looking forward to some real-world driving action, and that's part of the big draw of this series and this league is the real-world talent they've been able to draw in, working their way up the real-world ranks, obviously with the likes of Costello in the USF Pro 2000 Championship this year with Turn 3. Cool to see him shouting out the real team as much as his team here on the sim. Sophie, what a night of Super Formula action here. I think we've been hard-pressed to find a race where we're not just constantly having to get the cameras back and forth, catching all the battles, all the action, all the drama, and I think we've gotten something really, really special here in the Formula Super Series here on the channel.
For sure, Jacob. This is shaping up to be an excellent championship with the Eclipse team having a lot of pace, but seems that they sometimes have their own little misfortunes. And Logan Edwards currently being Mr. Consistency. This is shaping up to be quite the championship battle that we have in the Formula Super Series.
Yeah, we'll be back next week, as we've mentioned a couple times now, for round 4 from the Watkins Glen Cup layout, which will be a very fast, high-commitment, chaotic race. Maybe a little bit different than the one we saw here from MOTEGI. Not quite as many heavy braking zones around that very, very fast track. Obviously, you've got that bus stop chicane that'll play host to potentially some side-by-side, very dicey moments, but we'll just have to wait and see in 1 week's time for that one. We'll thank everybody for tuning in to round number 4 of the Formula Super Series. We'll catch you at that next round in Watkins Glen. Have a good night, everybody. We will catch you next time.